I'm not coming from the social sciences. I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm working on energy systems. But I believe that shift cost action together with our projects have quite similarities, especially in connecting with different decision makers. Now I will try to share my screen. I hope that you can see it right now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, excellent. Now let me try to enter the full screen.
Yeah.
The title of today's presentation is From Research to Policy, so connecting results with the decision makers. So this is a quite difficult topic, and for this I have around 40 slides. So around 1 hour, I believe that we can dedicate the whole day just for discussing on different challenges and issues on how to approach this. And in the next 40 slides, I will just to tell you from my own experience, what are the difficulties, what are the challenges. I will try to provide some tips and tricks, some lessons learned, but I believe that Q&A and discussion afterwards can bring some additional things to this to add to this perspective. So a little bit about me. So I'm mechanical engineer. I've been working at EU projects for some time, first as a project assistant and then postdoc at the University of Zagreb. And in the last 2 years, I'm part of the Energy Institute of Hrvoje Dorotić as a senior research consultant. My PhD topic is directly correlated to energy system modeling, especially to district heating and cooling. This is something maybe which you are not familiar with, and most of my projects will actually be coming from the area of energy system modeling, from renewable energy sources, and I believe I have prepared just a couple of slides so you can follow me better on the topics that I will talking about. More available info is on the research networks and on LinkedIn, so please feel free to contact me and to connect. Then we have another Hrvoje here. This is Energy Institute of Hrvoje Dorotić. We are national institution, and we are actually the Energy Institute. That means that we are tackling energy system challenges and problems. We like to think of ourselves as a one-stop shop for energy transition challenges. An idea is that we are implementing scientific research in the energy field and then bringing this scientific research both to the market, but also as giving professional support to public authorities. And why we are invited to this cost action, of course, once again, thank you for this opportunity. But the main reason is that we are quite connected with various decision makers coming from the EU level and then down to the companies, investors, local authorities, and national authorities. It's because we are providing for them some energy strategies, we are providing some energy modeling, so we are providing the results, which then have to be translated into different decision-making actions. So that is just briefly about me and about my institute. And now I will dig into the short introduction of what actually are research projects, which I'm going to talk about today. What is the impact of the project, in my opinion, the most important part of your project. And then we will just briefly present who are our decision makers and what do they mean for us. I will focus only on EU and Europe research programs, since most of my experience is actually related to European research programs. One of the most important part of the such programs is that they are focusing on quite important issues in our society. That is science, industrial leadership, and also related societal challenges, which you are also tackling in the shift cost action. It is quite important to notice that Europe is giving one of the largest research funds in the world. So for example, Horizon 2020 was around 80 billion. Now Horizon Europe is around 90. So this is really a big cake, and I believe that everybody who wants can have a slice of it. So there is plenty of money for each of us, for all the researchers, and so hopefully with this money we can develop an impact both for the Europe and for the world. Uh, the most important topics for me and for my institute is actually related to the Green Deal and climate action, but of course there are several topics which are included in Horizon Europe. I'm tackling Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020 because they are the most important research programs in the EU. However, there are other research programs which are available, so such as individual fellowships, such as Marie Sklodowska Career Action, Cost Action, which is actually the project that you are running. And there are other programs which are not focused on research, but still can provide an impact on industry, policy, society, so such as LIFE, Interreg, EUKI, I3 instruments, which are focusing on the also networks and investments. But there are also many other programs which are available, and we can talk about them for a whole day, especially on the European level. Many projects, but I believe that most important part of your project is actually your impact. And if you speak to the evaluators of the Horizon programs, of the Horizon goals, they will usually say that impact is one of the most important just part of your proposals, but also part of your overall project. There is some background noise, and if possible, if you can mute your mics. Thank you. But what is the actual impact that is lasting result of your project? Well, for us researchers, those are some papers, tools, reports, models. That is important for us, and this is good for the science. But the decision makers are usually not researchers, and you have to translate all of this into some meaningful results which can they use for decision making. I believe that the most important impact of our projects are actually triggered investments, policies changes, so and they can be direct through the projects, or they can be indirect, which means that they will come 5, 10, 15 years after the project is completed. Once again, the actual impact is the one which is important for our target groups, that is for our decision makers. That is your impact. In order to develop your impact, you should be aware that your project is just one small gear in the overall mechanism, let's say. Why? Because your project is usually funded via some call, and this call is usually tackling some specific topic, some specific problem. And your project is just one of the projects which is tackling this problem defined by the European Union, and you are just only fragment of the final solution. In order to have a lasting impact, your project should have some kind of synergy and some cooperation with other sister projects. So this whole mechanism could work and could be in synergy with one another. That is, you're putting your project into perspective with other projects which are available across European Union. But if we focus on your project consortium itself, once again, that is your institution, is just a single partner in your projects. I have projects which have around 30 partners, and you as institution have limited contribution to the overall impact. However, there are some crucial roles in the projects in order to establish this impact. Of course, one of the crucial persons in the project is a coordinator, which is actually overseeing the project implementation. Then in last couple of years, there is usually somebody who is tracking the impact. So how does our project actually during the project lifetime is providing the impact to the different stakeholders? Usually there is going to be some kind of work package, and this work package leader is now quite important. And for dissemination of communication, of course, there is work package leader who is trying to communicate during the project lifetime the actual results of the project to your predefined stakeholders. Usually people forget this, but your project will also have some project officer. Project officer is evaluating your process in the project and how are you actually tackling and how are you aligned with the grant agreement. But also project officer is good because he has a high level approach and he can steer the project, if he can, during the project lifetime, into direction in order to establish your impact. So please use the project officer not as a person who is just pushing you to give the results, but also you can communicate with them in order to actually achieve your results. Now, when we have defined some short questions about the project and the impact, let's dig into the most important part of your projects, starting from the impact, and those are the stakeholders which will hopefully use your results. For the purpose of these presentations, I have defined 4 different levels of your stakeholders, and these stakeholders are actually used for the decision making, and they will usually use your results in order to provide some decisions later on in their systems. There are 4 of them. First of all, this is EU decision making body, so the highest level of decision making in the European Union. Then we are lowering down ourselves to national authorities, so these are ministries, governments, and people who are deciding on the national level. However, crucial figures in the decision making are local authorities, because those national decisions are then translated to some kind of local action plans, which are usually taken care by local authorities. And the 4th stakeholder group is quite important for me. Maybe it's not so important for you as you're coming from the social sciences, but one of the bigger drivers, especially in the energy transition, are industry, and usually most of the research also is directed to them. So I will just present a few slides also about them. The thing is that each level has different approaches to be used, because every level of decision-making chain has different goals, different objectives, and of course for you, different challenges in order to communicate the results. And now I will just briefly, from my experience, say what are the characteristics of all of those stakeholders. So first of all, EU decision-making bodies, the most important thing is they are actually paying you to do your research. So this is unique for all of these decision makers, because they are actually interested in your research, and they want to hear what do you want to say from your research project. Important thing is, when you are communicating your results has to be tailored for the whole Europe. So do not focus on just one country, just one region. You have to provide the results and impact which will be can be translatable to the whole Europe. Usually they are interested in the strategies, in action plans, and usually European Union wants to think in quite long term and in the term of long-term strategies. So for example, 2050 energy strategy, so which will come in 30 years, has been defined in 2020 or something like that. So they are thinking around 20, 30 years ahead, and this is excellent timing for you and your project to have actual impact during this process. Of course, there are challenges. The decision making is quite time consuming, as you probably know, so because it has to go all through the EU decision making bodies, so all of that has to be agreed in order to put additional directive, to put additional plan. There are conflicting priorities in the European Union. So for example, once again, one country, for example, taking, for example, nuclear energy. So France will have a different opinion on nuclear energy than, for example, Italy or some other country. So you have a challenge of conflicting interests. And then, this is quite important, there is high competition for attention. This means that there are a lot of researchers which want their results to come into new directive, new action plans, and there is high competition, not just between researchers, Brussels is full of lobbyists, is full of the organizations and associations which want their voice to be heard. Then going down to the national authorities, of course, they want to solve their domestic challenges. They really want to tackle the national issues, and they are quite influenced by public opinion. In energy sector, this is quite important because, for example, taking energy prices for households. For example, you have Ukrainian natural gas prices, and then natural gas prices have risen 200%, but the prices for the energy customers, households, have not been increased so much. So there is a public opinion on this, and you are not allowed to increase the price of natural gas because then you will lose probably your next election. So you have to take care of that. This is good thing. That is that the policies developed for national authorities, especially if you are coming from the EU, have to be aligned with EU directives. So once handling this, you are also influencing sometimes also the national decision making. There are some challenges, of course. One of them is they have political agenda. National authorities are usually coming from some party, and these priorities usually shift when changing, if they are changing during elections or political changes. And of course, similar to European Union, this decision-making process is quite lengthy and it takes time. Local authorities super different than the previous two. They are focusing on practical, localized solutions, and they usually in your project they want to have pilot action, they want to have some implementation. So something which is focusing on sustainability, and for them social impact is super important because they want to do something for their own citizens of the region, of the municipality, of the city, and so on. The biggest problem for them is they usually don't have money for that, which is maybe good for you because you can tackle this issue in your project. So they have limited funding, and how to deal with this I will speak in the next slides. This is one of the biggest problems for you as a researchers and for me, because I'm coming from a technical field. They have lack of technical expertise usually. They don't have capacity to work with the waste, energy, transportation, lighting, and so on. And usually they have people doing everything. And when you as a researcher talking with them, you have to prepare your slides, your reports in order to be readable by them. And they want to focus on immediate results. They want to see results right now. They don't want to wait for 10, 15 years as the previous other two decision makers. And the fourth one, which is unique once again, are industry and companies. Industry wants to have product, model, tool, whatever, which is commercially viable. So they want to make, usually they want to make money out of it, which is sometimes good for you, but sometimes this could be a challenge. They want to have it to be scalable, and they want to have profit out of it, of course. Something which is quite important in last few years, they usually have some kind of green agenda, and they want to have some sustainability goals achieved in 10, 15 years, 5 years. For this is quite important, the ESG criteria, which is coming up in the last few years, and they usually want to use research programs in order to put themselves on this scale of achieving sustainability goals. Challenges, but also this is also the opportunity for you. They are profit driven. They want to have commercial viability. Also, they are also looking into short term. So they want to have new product coming up next month, and they want to make money out of it in a few years. So they want to things moving fast. This is biggest challenge I see, and that is IP and confidentiality concerns, because something which has been developed in European projects is usually open source free, but they as a company, they don't look it from that perspective. They want to keep them for themselves there are some challenges regarding this, but also there are some solutions which I will try to talk on during this presentation. About district heating, so the idea is that you have thermal energy supply via your thermal network to your final customers, and then you can integrate different energy sources you can integrate different energy sources in your system, waste heat, renewable energy, and so on. The thing is that this is relatively old. It's relatively old technology. However, it is quite important for European Union. Uh, it is all over the place. So, for example, you have it in the Energy Strategy for Heating and Cooling. You have it in Energy Efficiency Directive, Renewable Energy Directive, Strategy for Energy System Integration, and so on. One of the most important parts of district heating is that it can increase energy efficiency. It can integrate various renewable energy sources. It can recycle heat, and you can also do the sector coupling, which means you can integrate heating, for example, heating and power sector. So quite important for the integration of variable renewable energy sources. However, it was not always like that. So a great push in the research came in 2010. And this push came via different research projects from different energy programs. And somewhere around 2016 was also my project, which also, for example, funded my PhD. And it's important to notice that all of these projects have contributed to the actual status of district heating right now in the European Union. So all of them had actually combined impact on the current status in the district heating. Now I will dig into real life experience. I will first start with the EU decision makers, and one of the most important projects regarding the EU decision makers are the Heat Roadmap Europe projects. Heat Roadmap Europe projects are actually the projects which are tackling heating sector across the European Union. Uh, it all started, of course, in the Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Denmark, where they actually studied how district heating can contribute to the decarbonization of European Union. And the Heat Roadmap Europe is actually a series of different projects. And the last two are quite important because they are coming directly from the Horizon 2020, and I will focus on the last one, Horizon Europe 4. These last two projects are bolded because those are the projects where my group have actually contributed, and where I have a chance to also work on. Let's see how Heat Roadmap Europe 4 actually handled this reporting of research results to EU decision makers. Well, first of all, when you are doing the report for decision makers, they have to be clear, concise. So you have to leave all the complex models, all the complex equations and data, and your report must convey a clear message. A clear message is usually in terms of what are the policy changes that you want to make, and what are the actual policy recommendations that you want to make. For this purpose, they also developed these reports for several countries, and they then summarized the findings in the final report. When doing these national findings, they are usually done in the national language, and then of course the final report is then done in the usually in English, of course. And this is then used for the dissemination to the EU decision-making bodies. Uh, the report should integrate clear representation of input data and models, so there is no equations. And usually you want to make a clear statement and provide a really strong message in terms that you are comparing your results
with, for example, business as usual. So there is actual message how your research and how your research results can actually impact some sector. For example, so these were CO2 emissions, uh, 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 which were done in Hrvoje Pure project, and you can actually see what are the different scenarios across the years, and you can actually see the impact of your research in correlation with a business as usual scenario. Simple and easy to read diagrams and key findings should be clearly structured in some kind of text boxes, bolded. They have to look pretty. So the reports are usually around 20 pages long with clear policy measures and clear recommendations. uh, Besides your reports and your numbers and equations, you should also have some kind of web platform. This is usually some kind of website which has all the reports available, of course. But something important, you should also have some tools map. So, for example, Heat Realm Europe develop a pan-European thermal atlas. So it's super easy friendly. It is totally clickable. So you can just go around and see the actual results of the project in the clear, nice visualization. The thing is, this project ended like 6 years ago, but the project website and the website map is still running and is used also for other projects. Here you can have a nice synergy with other projects sharing the data on this platform. And this platform right now is being used in different results. It is cited in other papers, cited in other projects. So this is like a big impact just by giving nice visualizations of the data which already exists. In order to reach decision makers, you have to organize workshops and sessions at a high level. So, for example, just look at the last couple of years of the Horizon Roadmap Europe project. So, there are a lot of workshops, especially in Brussels, on the conferences, on the high level events. When you're talking with decision makers in the EU, you usually want to organize final workshop in Brussels, where you invite several EU stakeholders. And for this purpose, you usually want to have partners in your consortium which have good EU network. These are associations which are usually stationed in Brussels. For example, here in this project, there was Euro Heat and Power because they are dealing with district heating. Then, for example, European Association for Heat Pumps because heat pumps is important for decarbonization of heating sector and so on. So you have to find those associations and lobbyist bodies which can actually contribute to connect you with the EU stakeholders. What are some lessons learned from this project? Well, this is quite generic, but it should be used especially when defining reports for the EU decision makers, and do not use scientific approach when reporting. Reporting should be done in easy to read manner with easy to read information with clear policy suggestions. The decision makers in EU want to have policy suggestions and suggestions of the long-term strategies and plans. Your project results should be available after your project finishes because the decision making is quite long in the European Union, and your research results, project results, should be available for a long time after the project ends. You have to cooperate with other projects for lasting impact. So you have to organize joint workshops, joint policy sessions, joint conference, and so on. And those workshops, high level workshops, usually have to be organized in Brussels with high level EU decision makers. And for that, you have to use organizations which are stationed in Brussels, usually in Brussels, because they have private connections with high level players. This is just quickly on the EU decision making. Let's see how this is done and some examples coming for the national level. The decision makers, the approach is similar as for the EU decision makers. However, usually for national level, you have to use your own network, which you have developed in your own country. For this purpose, I will use the example of the EUKI project. European Climate Initiative, or EUKI, is not a research program, but for this purpose, we have used science-based approach in order to develop policy recommendations for decarbonization of the power sector. And we were focusing on the national level in several countries. But besides the modeling, we also did the analysis of the national energy climate plans, or called NECP. NECP is one of the most important energy documents for each country, for each EU member states, because it defines energy strategies and targets for the upcoming timeline. And we also did the analysis of resilience recovery facility plans, which arrived somewhere after the COVID-19 crisis. So once again, this was not a research program, not a research project. However, the project had scientific elements, and we used this scientific approach in order to develop national level studies, which were, of course, translated to the national languages. So here was a study developed for the purpose of Croatia, where we actually did the modeling of the scenario analysis for the long-term planning of the national power sector system. And then this report has been developed, so easy to read, with recommendations which are clearly structured. And probably the most important thing, this has to be disseminated on the workshops with stakeholders. Here you have to invite national level players. So this is going to be ministry. For example, for us, important ones are national system operators and national level companies which are running the power sector. Presentations are also being held at conferences and seminars. And here you have to invite national level players, both as participants but also as speakers. Once again, you have to use existing national network even before your project started. You have to know these people in order to provide them the results from your project. You have to use also the project outputs during public counseling. For example, during that time, national energy strategy has been drafted, and we actually use the project outputs in order to develop comments during the public counseling. And these comments, some of these comments have been used in the update of this national energy strategy. So your voice must be heard during these similar processes during your project timeline. In the Energy Institute of Hrvoje Požar, we are doing consultations with national level authorities, and this is actually a good example how communicate with the national level the decision makers. So, for example, we did the calculation of carbon factors for different technologies. So this was consultation, like a 6 months consultation. And for this, we have drafted around 150-page document report, but national level decision maker just were really focusing on just single table in that document. They didn't want to, I mean, it was important for them to know how did we calculate those numbers, but the most important part of the document was a single table, and this table, has been commented during workshops and during consultations in order to develop suitable final results, which were suitable for those national level authorities. One of the Another good example is development of the national energy strategies. So these are long-term projects which can last for more than 1 year, and for this you have to involve around 50% of our institute was involved in the development of the such strategies. However, you have to also participate on the consultations, face-to-face consultations with those national authorities, in order to present them the results so they can actually understand what are the results behind of your models, and everything once again has to be done in easy to read manner, with nice diagrams, and the presentation of the results has to be really simplified. Lessons learned during this, I believe this is the most important. You have to know the people which you are talking to. You have to know them before this project even starts. The best thing is that you actually include these national level decision makers in your project as partners. They can have a with budget, or they don't have to have a budget. So there are different options how to utilize them in your project. uh, During that project, it is also good to use their knowledge, because they usually know national decision making processes much better than you do. So you can actually use them as your partner during the project. So you can actually simplify some processes and some decision making policy recommendations that you are developing, so they can actually contribute in that process. Meetings should be also be face to face. It's much simpler to talk with them when you are in some round table and you will have time for discussions. And once again, scientific results in easy to read reports. So this is usually done for all the decision makers. Local level decision makers are totally different than those two. I will give you example coming from the actual research innovation action project called Plan Hit. The project ran for 4 years from 2016 to 2020. The goal of the project was to actually develop a tool which is tailored for public authorities to develop their own sustainable plans for heating and cooling. So the tool has to be open source, easy to use. But the thing is that this problem is quite difficult to model, quite difficult to program, and it was quite ambitious to make it user friendly. The thing is that we actually included those local authorities in the project as demo cases in order to validate our tool. The tool was structured in several modules. So we have mapping model, planning model, and then simulation model. The tool was able to map everything on the building level and on the hectare level. So just to give you idea what is going on. So to model something on the building level, you must have a lot of input data, and this is quite complex problem. We noticed that public authorities do not have this data available on the building level. So we have proposed, okay, if you don't have this data available, then just do everything on the hectare level. This became quite complex problem, and this problem become also complex in order for public authorities to use the tool, as you will see later on. At the end, the tool that we have developed was not click and play. It was desktop based, and it was used as a plugin in one different tool. So we had to have some kind of installation in it. I believe that now you can see what was the problem in our project, because most of our public authorities did not have this level of technical expertise to simply use the tool. Tool looks something like this. So the mapping can be done on the building level. So you can actually see there are a lot of buttons which have to be clicked. I'm just putting things quite clear for you to see it. We had some quite difficult results. So you can see some hourly diagrams over here with different supply technologies for your system. But during this, in order to make them easy to use, we also organized training for the public authorities. We organized 4 training modules for them. But we have one big problem, and that is we have used the training during the project development, which means that public authorities were used as, let's say, guinea pigs in order to see how to use the tool and to validate how the tool is user friendly. Public authorities do not like this, and they want to use easy to use tools, use simulation tools, because they want to have something just click and play and easy to read. uh, During this time, there were 2 sister projects which were funded in the call. One of them was the tool called Hotmaps, and they took totally different routes. So, for example, they did not do demand on the building level. They did it from the start on the hectare level. So much easier modeling, much simpler tool to develop. The tool is web based and is available via this link. It is click and play. So even if you don't have actual training technical expertise, you can just start to use the tool. And they actually did excellent compromise between tool complexity and user friendliness. A training program for them was built totally differently. They actually didn't teach. They didn't taught the local authorities. They have actually taught the trainers, which will teach the public authorities how to use the tool. And something quite important, they have also developed a wiki page on how to use the tool. So the tool is up and running. It looks something like this. You can like 4 buttons which can be used. You have the map already available, and you are actually just picking your part of the city, for example, which you would like to model. Super easy, super friendly, easy to use, and I'm seeing now after 5 6 years that both projects have finished. I see more people actually using this tool than the tool we have actually developed. So the lessons learned in this process is, uh, most important thing, local authorities usually lack technical expertise. This is crucial for the research projects because you are usually dealing with quite complex ideas and problems, and yet you have to simplify everything for them. That there has to be compromise between complexity and user friendliness if you are developing some kind of a tool, model, whatever. If you are developing something like that, I'm proposing that the tool is web-based. So there is a link. They click on something opens up, and then they can click and play, check the results, and so on. They don't want to be tool testers. They don't want to be model testers. They want to use the results. However, you should integrate public authorities in your project in order to validate your model, to validate your tool, and so on. This can be done by integrating them in the project as their partner, so they can have a budget. If not, when doing that, you should know that sometimes they need guidance in the EU project processes. So if they don't have experience with the EU project, you have to take some of your own time in order to introduce them to the project, introduce them to the platforms which are being used, and the overall idea of the European projects. And the last ones are how to reach companies and industry sector. I believe this is maybe not so interesting for you, for your projects, but I would just like to give you short 2 slides from my perspective. This experience comes from 2 huge European research projects called River Heat and Uses for Heat. They are both 4-year projects. They are still running, so their impact is still to be assessed. But I can speak a little bit about how to connect with the industry and companies. Those projects are quite big, so more than 15 million euros of budget, a large consortium with experts across the Europe. And usually you want to develop novel technologies, novel models, and so on. So there is some kind of innovation which is involved. Uh, my tips and tricks for this, in your project, you should include some industry representatives in the project. So this is must, because you want to see how the industry during the project thinks about your results, about your tools, equipment which you have developed, and so on. All of those projects should have some kind of demonstration or investment activities. Is actually you have to demonstrate that your equipment or your novelty is actually working, and you have to measure this, you have to validate this, because of measurement and validation of your result is super important for investors and companies which would like to use your research results. During this IPR, intellectual property rights are crucial issue. Companies do not like open source. They do not like this idea that everything is free, especially if they put their own money and their own time in the process. This usually is not a problem, because you can define the actual owners of these intellectual property rights, and then after the project finishes, they can use these intellectual properties as their own. Reports are totally different than the reports you are deploying for the other decision makers. These reports have to be data-based and they have to be deleted. So when you are using the results for companies and industries for decision makers, you have to bring them everything: models, scientific reports, complex data, not problem for them. So feel free to use actual scientific approach when you are providing them your reports. It is good to have those reports when possible and when available on the open science platforms, such as GitHub platforms for tools and model sharing. And you have this platform from the European Union called Zenodo, where you can put all the reports available. It is really nice to disseminate and communicate the results like that. You have to present your results at industry conferences, at some kind of events, congresses, and so on. And probably the most important thing when you are providing results to the industry, they usually must have some kind of financial benefit. So your results must be better from the current situation, both from the environmental point of view, social, and so on, but they usually care about financial benefits of that solution. To conclude, I will now try to summarize some other tips and tricks which have not been shown in the last slides. First of all, lasting impact of your project is difficult to truly assess, because usually your project has some indirect benefits after your project finishes. So you have to analyze your impact in some timeline after your project ends. Uh, your project cannot have a true impact without cooperation and synergy with other projects and similar activities. For this, you have to cooperate with other projects. You have to have some kind of synergy, which is usually done via some joint workshop sessions, joint conferences. So you have to also network with other projects which are currently running. Your network is the basis of each project and a basis for the decision making, communication with other decision makers. During this, your personal network is actually the best. So before you even start your project, once again, you should know these people. You have to know from which authorities are they coming, what is the structure of those authorities, and so on. When doing the reporting, uh, project results should be tailored for the end user, which means usually they have to be compromised between the data complexity which you are presenting and recommendations for policy recommendations that you want to do. So it's not so important to present all the fancy diagrams and all the fancy results. Focus on the most important things which is needed for that decision maker that you want to communicate with. And once again, include those decision makers in the project as partners. So they don't have to have a budget. They can be associated partner, they can be follower, they can follow the project with a letter of support and so on. But including them in the process, it will be much, much easier for you to communicate the idea and your results once you have something to show them and to reach those decision makers with your actual project results. That's it for me. Once again, sorry for technical issues. Why do they always happen when you present? I don't know. Maybe we can have project on this. Now I would like to have some time for discussion, some Q&A. I would like to start with the question: what do you think about these tips and tricks? What do you think? Am I something missing? Can you add something on this? And I would like to hear your thoughts of your own challenges when you are communicating the results to your decision makers, whoever there be. So I would like to open the floor, and probably Natalia will be a coordinator of this. So please.
Yeah, I will help you with moderating the questions. And while people take their time to raise their hands, I just want to emphasize some important elements that you mentioned in your presentation. First of all, thank you for the interesting presentation and sharing your experience. I represent think tank. We also work with national authorities in Georgia. And I really saw a lot of similarities with our experience as well from your presentation. Especially, I liked this one of the first slides when you showed this diagram with different elements working together and emphasizing importance of working with cooperating with other projects, because this is really what I saw, that when cooperating with other projects, your voice is louder and it's creating more impacts when you do these synergies. And also from our experience, I want to emphasize the importance of engaging with stakeholders, national authorities through the projects, involving them as a partners, as associated partners, because they're usually very busy people, different representatives of agencies, ministries, etc. They cannot participate as a full member of the consortium, but at least through participation in meetings and in various activities, you are able to track their changing needs, because needs of policymakers changing quite fast, and you need to adapt to it to make sure that your project results fit their needs. And also it helps you to keep them engaged and keep them informed about what you're doing, because otherwise sometimes they lose this track record, and sometimes you need to start from the beginning explaining what are you doing, why are you doing, why this is important. So this is really a very nice advices. I saw one hand, but not see it now. It was from Theo, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, hi.
That is correct. Hi again. Hrvoje, I don't know if I'm spelling well your name, Hrvoje. Awesome, awesome, wonderful insight, very beautiful presentation. I have a question. How would you suggest to, when you have, let's say, a technology or something that you need to advocate at the policy making level, or you wish to come up with a new, let's say, call at Horizon or other EU program. what would you suggest to be the best approach in order to reach your aim?
Yeah, so if I understood, you would like to apply for this program, or are you developing a proposal, or what is it?
Let's say in your case, you had to develop this central heating, maybe not your case, but as an example, and you wish to promote this kind of research at the first level, or this technology at the policy level, to the European officials or the local national officials. How would you suggest to approach? I mean, there is, to my understanding, there is step by step in order
Yeah.
to change. For example, to have an open call in the new frame FP 10, or let's say a call for the next horizon for next year, and things like that. What would you suggest to do?
Yeah. So, from my experience, we have started with district heating projects in Croatia around 2014 or something. And at university, we had around 10, 15 projects just talking about district heating. So, nothing fancy, just introducing the Scandinavian ideas of district heating to Croatia. And during those times, 2015, 16, 17, like nobody was interested in that. Like I was going to the national operators of district heating. Can you please come to my project? Can you be my partner? I'm not so sure what is this program and so on. Fast forward 2023. I was applying for a live district heating project. I wasn't. I didn't have a I didn't have operator which is not involved in one of the projects. So this is a huge step, in just in 8 years that people got interested in the issues of the district heating from the program level, from the research level, and so on. How did this happen? Well, first of all, I believe that there's so much talks about going on. So we had a lot of conferences like this is good. You should implement this technology, and when you repeat something so many times on the conferences, on the many workshops done on the national level, people from the country will start asking, can we be a part of it? I see there is maybe some money involved. We can get some results for ourselves. Can we be a part of it? I think the most important thing is to do some like a national cluster. So, for example, a couple of like research institutions which are dealing with this topic come together with your ideas and try to make national level workshops in which you are actually talking about this. So just talking. I mean, it does sound silly, but after all, people who are working in decision maker bodies are people, and they have to hear about these things from you. And when they are ready, you have to invite them in similar things, and then they can actually make some decisions when they see that these decisions have actual logic for them to implement. Example, now like almost each district heating operator is now doing some kind of study for investment if in renewable, in thermal storage, in waste heat usage. So they're actually doing the things that we have promoted 10 years ago. It takes time, but just have to speak with them. On the Brussels level, on the EU level, usually, a really nice event to talk about this is European Sustainable Energy Week, which is organized every year in Brussels. And for example, there you can talk with similar projects. You can apply to have your own session, so like a half day, 1 day session, and there you can get the people in there and you can discuss this on the EU level. It won't happen over the night. So, for example, these heat roadmap Europe projects, uh, it is the series which lasted for 10 years. So it's not just one workshop and you will solve all the problems. It's not possible, especially on the EU level. Long story short, communication with other projects, clustering yourselves into topics and so on, and do the presentations, live presentations on the workshops, whatever you want to organize in Brussels for the EU level decision makers. Quite long answer, sorry for this, but I just want to
No,
reiterate
it
for
was
you.
to the point. If I may add our let's say insight, of course you need to build relation at the EU level, even with the lower teams at DG Klima, for example, at the DGs and things like that. But the most important thing to realize is that you need to work with your MEPs at the national levels, because are the countries that promote, let's say, the different changes, the different calls and things like that. So they suggest and they decide at the European level the different countries. So it is important to reach your national, let's say, representatives, or the people that are involved from the ministries, from the MEPs and things like that. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is another question in the chat. I will read it. So how do you reconcile the changing landscape of evidence with the long-term strategies? Energy is much more long-term than other sectors, but we also face this challenge in other sectors in terms of the different paces of evidence production and decision-making in policy in the industry.
Yeah, so once again, I can talk from my perspective, which is energy. Energy sector is quite long inert system. If you want to make changes, changes can be done like in 5 years. Once again, EU level is thinking about 10, 15, 20 years ahead. And if your project lasts for 4 or 5 years, I believe that is enough for you to, if you can make an impact on those decision making. However, the timing of the project itself is super important. For example, now we have one project which I didn't have time to show, called Ready for Heat, which is actually the purpose of the project is to provide the analysis of the national NACPs which are being submitted to the European Union. However, once the project have started, those NACPs have been already submitted. So the timing of the project was not ideal for the project impact. And now we will have to think about, maybe we will do like some commenting on the existing NACPs, and we will have to do some ex ante analysis of the ex post analysis of those NACPs. So the timing of the project, when the project starts, it has to be aligned with the activities on the decision-making process. This is, I don't know, like the timelines in other sectors, but the issue is here that you have enough time to do your impact, but you have to provide that your results are long-lasting. For this, web platforms, websites, I see that when projects are finished, the domains of those websites are dead. You know, you cannot download the Learable report which has been submitted like 5 years ago. This is a really bad thing if you want to influence these long-term decision-making processes. I'm not sure in which timeline are you talking about is in your project. Are those months, years? What are you maybe
maybe I can't. That makes a lot of sense with energy. It's just really interesting that different sectors are going to face different challenges with the different paces, I guess, of these things happening. I'm at the moment working on a project which is about textile microfiber pollution, and it's actually the other way around almost. They want to be making policy decisions, but the evidence is we've got gaps, we don't know, you know. So it's like, I think there's different challenges with the different paces of the of the different actors, if you like, in different sectors. It kind of depends, but yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you.
Rosie, by the way, you mentioned a very nice tool in the chat. Maybe you can say a few words about it, because when we were talking about the communication to policymakers and that the result should be appealing, they should look nice, they should be concise. Maybe you can say just very quickly a few words about this tool, because I think it's interesting.
Yeah, so I shared something that we call the guideline canvas tool. It was also developed within an EU project. And what you were saying about the translation and for different audiences, I thought this is quite relevant. So it was for the Hrvoje project, and my work is about translational design, so how you can use design to aid translation of results into different audiences. And we had such a variety of different stakeholders, like really representing the whole value chain, that we wanted to engage. And so we developed this tool so that we could help guide the technical teams who are developing guidelines as to what kind of questions they should be looking to answer in these guidelines, and the different levels of information, but also the format, the delivery for different audiences. And we kind of guided them through filling out this canvas through a whole research process, which was about stakeholder engagement. So it was quite a complex process, but I think the canvas is quite helpful just to kind of remind you of the different things that you might have to think about for different audiences. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think that type of guidelines and also some types of templates are quite useful, because not everyone has the skills and time to develop it from the scratch. But when you have the template or examples for yourselves, then it's really very useful. There is also one comment in the chat. I will read it. So just a comment on a general perspective. One important output for project is construction and sharing of policy briefs. And we all know that politicians do not read, so the ability to summarize research results in a comprehensive way is crucial. And second aspect is related to identifying the barriers and drivers connected to the transition from proposed policy to specific action, and how they impact the local context. I believe that greater awareness on this point is necessary.
May I suggest something on this point?
Yes, sure.
Executive summary 1 page, or maximum 5 to 7 pages, digestible, with infographics, with structured way, bullet points and things like that. Very easily, nothing fancy, as our speaker said before, and to the point. Very, very short, 1 to 3.
Yeah, we call this 5 minutes. Now, 1 minute with the director in the elevator. So you are stuck with the director of your company at the elevator for 1 minute, and you have
pitch.
Yeah, do your pitch like that. So my name is this and this. This is what I can do for you, and that's it. So they don't have time for you to listen about your results. I mean, we as researchers have papers 20 pages long. We want to talk about this and everything, but after all, when you are talking with them, structured, easy to read, up to the point. Yeah.
Could I just add something quickly to that? I think it's also so important.
Sure.
Different languages that different stakeholders use. You talked about like keeping it really concise and to the point, but just I know this might not be relevant to energy, I don't know, but when we're bringing together different creative disciplines as well as social sciences and engineering and material science and industry, all of these different things, visual techniques, different types of languages, tactile language sometimes as well, samples and things that people can touch. There's like quite a lot of different approaches to making sure that people can understand and that the right kinds of language are used. So it's just a point that you can be quite creative with how you convey the information in the way that people are going to understand, that uses their languages as well. Yeah.
So your stakeholders are not like on EU level, or what are your stakeholders for you for your textile? Is it industry, the actual industry, or?
Yeah, well, a bit of everything, to be honest. Industry, policy, yeah, it's a systemic approach, so it tries to look at the whole challenge, I guess, and engage and translate the knowledge to as many of those levels as possible that are needed to make the change possible, you know, right? So you need policy, you need industry, you need people to be on board, you need communities to understand the value. So yeah, we try to use a value approach to understand, you know, what's in it for these people, like why would they want to do what you're asking them to do, and then use the translational process that you described to help make the research and those people kind of talk or understand one another.
Great. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, then I would like to use the opportunity to announce the second masterclass that will be conducted on October 14, and soon you will receive invitation to this. And if you have interest and time availability, please join us. The second masterclass will be focusing on dissemination and communication strategy, as well as structuring the proposals for EU framework programs. We will have speakers, two speakers from Euroquality, which is a consulting company that supports collaborative projects under different programs of Horizon Europe, and not only, with proposal structuring, and also with, they are usually work package leaders for dissemination and communication. So they will speak about how to basically write strong impact section for the proposal. So how European Commission sees this impact section, what they are looking for, what are the main vision, and how to make it really, this section really strong, because this is one of the most challenging sections when you write the proposals, and each of us at some stage, I am sure, participated in the proposal preparation. So we know that sometimes it's quite difficult to define what will be the impacts of the project. So they will speak about some tips and tricks for this section, and also they will speak about importance of good communication and dissemination strategy, because without, as we discussed already today, without good communication and dissemination strategy, it's impossible to ensure that your results have the impact, because they need to reach the target audience, decision makers or industries, or maybe even general public. So I really would like to invite you to this masterclass. I hope that you will receive invitations maybe today, even today. Okay, if there are no other questions, Alex, you wanted to say something? You mentioned in the chat, and I'm just trying to.
Just sharing some additional information, and I think it is useful to have time to look at the competence science for policy framework, and it will, you know, actually go through some of the important stuff that Hrvoje and Rosie and you guys have mentioned, and it might have, you know, it might tell you where some of the gaps in your own skills are, and, you know, give you opportunities or hints where you can work towards improving.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I would like to thank once again our speaker for a very interesting presentation, for sharing his experience with us today. And I also wish you a nice weekend ahead. Today is Friday, so I hope you have a nice weekend ahead. And I hope I will see you again at our next masterclass. Thank you all for your engagement and attendance.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you on some other event. Thank you.